The Alps are not silent, they whisper, they groan under the weight of centuries, they sigh in the cold wind. And sometimes, if you listen long enough, they speak. They remember everything. The footsteps of hunters with flint-tipped spears, the slow migrations of tribes who carried their gods on their backs, the blood spilled in feuds forgotten by all but the stones. And high among these peaks, on a lonely pass between Austria and Italy, they remember a man. For over 5,000 years he lay there, his body locked in a prison of ice, his story frozen in a single unfinished moment. The snow had built up around him year after year, entombing him in a glacier's cold embrace. Winds screamed above his grave, storms came and went, but nothing disturbed his rest. Until September 19th, 1991. Helmut and Erica Simon were seasoned hikers. They knew the mountain paths, the dangerous weather shifts, the deceptive calm of early autumn. That day, the air was crisp but gentle. Snowmelt trickled down the rocks, revealing dark patches of earth and glistening ice. Helmut saw it first, something dark protruding from the melting glacier. At first, he thought it was a twisted root, then perhaps the remains of a mountaineer who had met misfortune in recent decades. But as they drew closer, the truth began to take shape. It was a man. He lay face down, half embedded in the ice. His skin was dark and leathery, stretched taut over sharp bones. His clothes were made of stitched animal hides, unlike anything seen in modern times. Beside him, frozen into the ice, was a gleam of metal and axe, not steel, copper. The Simons did not yet understand what they had found. They could not know they were looking at the most complete and well-preserved human from the distant past ever discovered. They could not know that with their touch, they were pulling a thread that would unravel a story spanning 5 millennia, and perhaps awaken something that should have remained asleep. Scientists would later determine that the man was over 5,300 years old, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older even than most recorded human history. They called him Ötzi after the Ötztal Alps, but locals began to whisper another name, Der Mann aus dem Eis, the Iceman. His preservation was astonishing. Every detail survived: the tattoos etched into his skin, the stitching on his clothes, the last meal in his stomach. That final meal was humble: bread, dried ibex meat, and herbs. Yet it spoke volumes. Bread meant agriculture. Meat meant hunting. The herbs suggested knowledge of medicinal plants. He was not a wanderer. He was a man of skill, perhaps even importance. His clothes told more of his story: goat hide leggings, a woven grass cloak, and shoes insulated with dry grass and deerskin. On his head, a fur cap made from a brown bear. And then there was the copper axe. In his time, copper was not common. It required smelting ore at high temperatures, a process far beyond the abilities of most villages. Whoever carried a copper axe was someone of status, and someone worth killing. For many years, it was thought Ötzi had simply been caught in a sudden mountain storm, but advances in forensic technology painted a darker truth. A CT scan revealed an arrowhead lodged deep in his left shoulder. It had torn through an artery. Death would have been swift minutes, perhaps seconds. He had also suffered a blow to the head, broken ribs, and defensive cuts on his hands. There was blood, human blood, on his clothes and weapons from 4 different people. In other words, Ötzi had not died by chance. He had been hunted. Reconstructed from evidence, his final moments might have been something like this: a lone figure staggering through the snow, clutching his copper axe. His breath rasps in the cold, each step a battle. His shoulder burns with agony. Blood darkens the fur of his tunic. Behind him, faint shapes move in the blizzard, his pursuers. The wind howls, snow swirls so thick it blurs the world into white. He stops, turning, scanning the ridge. The shapes vanish into the storm. Was he running from them or towards something? Did he seek refuge in these heights? Or was he drawn here by something older, something the mountains themselves had promised him? No one knows. But the storm closed in, and the glacier swallowed him whole. For the first decade after his discovery, the Iceman was a wonder of archaeology. But then, the deaths began. Rainer Henn, the forensic pathologist who examined Ötzi's body, died in a car crash on his way to give a lecture about the mummy. Kurt Fritz, a mountaineer who guided scientists to the site, died in an avalanche. And Helmut Simon, who discovered the body, fell to his death while hiking not far from where he had found Ötzi. Days later, Dieter Warnecke, the head of the rescue team that recovered Simon's body, died suddenly of a heart attack. Konrad Spindler, the archaeologist who led the first examination of the mummy, succumbed to multiple sclerosis. 7 people in total, each directly connected to the Iceman-Met's sudden or unusual deaths. Skeptics said it was coincidence. Others whispered that Ötzi had not forgiven those who disturbed his grave. The tattoos on Ötzi's body, over 60 in total, were not decorative. They were arranged along joints in the spine, perhaps for pain relief, perhaps for ritual magic. Some claimed the placement matched ancient protective symbols, wards against evil or curses. But if they were meant to protect him, they had failed. Or perhaps they still worked, but in reverse, binding his spirit to the mountain. Climbers who pass near the Tysonjoch Pass at night tell stories of voices carried on the wind. The words are in no language they recognize. Some say they have seen a lone figure in furs and leather standing on the ridge, only for him to vanish when approached. Museum staff speak in hushed tones about Ötzi's eyes. Under certain light, they seem to glisten, not with moisture, but with awareness. Today, Ötzi lies in a sealed, climate-controlled chamber in the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology. Visitors peer through thick glass at his body, preserved as he fell. At night, security cameras have recorded faint flickers of light moving within the chamber. Sometimes shadows shift when no one is inside. Once, a night guard swore he saw frost form on the outside of the glass, just for a moment, before it melted away. Some believe the glass is not only to protect him, but to protect us from him. Long before Ötzi was found, the mountain people told of the Schneewächter, the snow watchers, spirits of warriors betrayed in life, condemned to guard the high passes in death. They say that those who meet the watchers must offer something of great value or risk never leaving the mountains. The oldest among them warn, "The snow does not forget, the ice does not forgive. Stand before the glass, and you will see him, a man out of time, eyes sunken yet sharp, as though measuring you. His skin is darkened by centuries of cold, but his presence feels alive. Is he only a relic of the past, or is he still watching, still guarding, still waiting? Perhaps the curse is not about death at all. Perhaps it is about being remembered, forcing those who find him to carry his story forever. And if you ever cross the Tysonjoch Pass and hear footsteps in the snow behind you, do not turn around. Some doors once open, never close. Never,